It was a regular Tuesday afternoon at Richmond's Family Market, the kind where time seemed to crawl by at a snail's pace. Jessica Chen, a 23-year-old cashier, had been working there for nearly 2 years to help pay for her evening college classes. The store, tucked away in a quiet corner of Georgetown, Washington, D.C., usually served local residents and occasional tourists, but this day would turn out to be anything but ordinary. The afternoon rush had just begun to die down when she noticed a young teenage boy nervously approaching her checkout counter. He was tall for his age, wearing a simple blue polo shirt and khaki pants, trying his best to blend in with the other customers. Jessica immediately recognized him as Barron Trump, but maintained her professional composure, treating him just like any other customer. The young man placed a few items on the counter: a chocolate bar, a sports magazine, and a gift card. As Jessica began scanning the items, she noticed his hands trembling slightly as he reached for his wallet. The total came to $23.75, and when he pulled out his credit card, his face suddenly fell. The card was declined. The color drained from his face as he frantically checked his phone, likely trying to access his banking app. Jessica could see the embarrassment creeping into his expression, especially as other customers began to line up behind him. She remembered her own similar experiences as a teenager, and without hesitation, made a split-second decision. "The system's been acting up all day," she said loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. "Let me try running it again." She pretended to swipe the card once more, but instead, quickly used her own card to complete the transaction. "There we go. Sometimes it just needs a second try," she said with a warm smile, handing him the receipt. The relief on Barron's face was immediate, but before he could say anything, Jessica was already helping the next customer, treating the incident as if it were the most normal thing in the world. She didn't expect anything in return, it was simply the right thing to do. The next day started like any other, with Jessica arranging her register and preparing for her shift. However, around mid-morning, she noticed an unusual amount of activity near the store's entrance. Secret Service agents appeared, followed by none other than former President Donald Trump himself. He walked directly to her counter, causing the entire store to fall silent. Jessica stood frozen, unsure of what to expect. The former president's face broke into a genuine smile as he approached. "I heard about what you did for my son yesterday," he said, his voice carrying across the now quiet store. Jessica felt her cheeks flush as Trump continued, "That kind of kindness is rare these days. Barron told me how you helped him without making a scene, without wanting any attention. That meant a lot to him, and to me." He reached out to shake her hand, and Jessica noticed he was holding an envelope. "Small acts of kindness make America great," Trump said, handing her the envelope. Inside was a heartfelt thank you note, a substantial gift card to help with her college expenses, and an invitation to dinner with his family. But what touched Jessica most wasn't the monetary value, it was the handwritten message from Barron, thanking her for her kindness and understanding. The story quickly spread through the store and the local community, not because Jessica had sought attention, but because others had witnessed the entire interaction. Local news outlets picked up the story, highlighting how a simple act of kindness had bridged divides and reminded people of our shared humanity. In the weeks that followed, Jessica's story inspired others to share their own experiences of unexpected kindness. The store began a Pay It Forward program, where customers could contribute to a fund helping those who might come up short at the register. What started as a simple gesture had sparked a chain reaction of goodwill throughout the community. Looking back, Jessica would often say that the most remarkable part wasn't the recognition or the reward, but the reminder that underneath all our differences, we're all just people trying our best to make it through each day. Her small act of kindness had not only helped someone in need but had also shown that compassion knows no political boundaries. As she continues her studies and work at the market, Jessica's story serves as a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact. Her experience proved that kindness, when offered freely and without expectation of return, has the power to transcend social status, political affiliations, and even make headlines, though that was never her intention. The dinner invitation from the Trump family wasn't just a simple meal, it became a turning point in Jessica's life. As she stood outside the prestigious Georgetown restaurant a week later, smoothing down her favorite navy blue dress, she couldn't help but think about how surreal the situation felt. The same young woman who had been counting pennies for textbooks was now about to dine with one of the most well-known families in America. Inside, she was greeted warmly by Barron, who had grown noticeably more comfortable around her since their first encounter. The former president and Melania Trump were already seated at a private table in a secluded corner of the restaurant, away from curious onlookers. As Jessica approached, she noticed how different they seemed in person, more relaxed, more human. "We've heard so much about you from Barron," Melania said with a genuine smile, gesturing for Jessica to take a seat. "Not just about what happened at the store, but about your dedication to your education while working full-time." The former First Lady's words immediately put Jessica at ease, and soon they were engaged in conversation about Jessica's studies in early childhood education. Throughout the evening, Jessica shared stories about her own family, her parents who had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but dreams, her younger sister who was still in high school, and their shared belief in the power of education and hard work. The Trumps listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and sharing their own experiences with the challenges of balancing public life with personal growth. As their main courses arrived, Donald Trump leaned forward with an unexpected proposition. "Jessica, we've been thinking about how to make your act of kindness create an even bigger impact," he began. "We'd like to establish a scholarship fund in your name for working students who, like you, are trying to better themselves through education while helping others." Jessica nearly dropped her fork in surprise. "A scholarship fund," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. The former president nodded, explaining how they had been moved not just by her kindness to Barron, but by her entire story, her immigrant background, her work ethic, and her pursuit of education despite financial challenges. "We want to call it the Chen Act of Kindness Scholarship," Melania added. "It would help other young people who show the same spirit of generosity and determination that you demonstrated." The initial fund would support 10 students annually with full tuition coverage at their chosen colleges. Barron, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. "I've been thinking about what happened that day," he said, meeting Jessica's eyes. "It wasn't just about the money. It was about being treated like a normal person, not just someone's son. That meant a lot to me." As the evening progressed, they discussed the details of the scholarship program. Jessica would be involved in the selection committee, helping to identify deserving students who demonstrated both academic potential and a commitment to community service. The fund would prioritize working students, particularly those from immigrant families or first-generation college students. The news of the scholarship program spread quickly through the media, but this time, Jessica was prepared for the attention. She saw it as an opportunity to spotlight the challenges faced by working students and the importance of community support. Local businesses began reaching out, offering to contribute to the scholarship fund and create internship opportunities for recipients. Back at Richmond's Family Market, Jessica's co-workers celebrated her success, but noticed that she remained the same humble person they'd always known. She continued working her regular shifts, now using her breaks to review scholarship applications or mentor potential candidates. Her story had transformed from a simple act of kindness into a movement that was changing lives. The store itself became a symbol of hope in the community. Customers would often share their own stories of struggle and triumph, inspired by Jessica's example. The Pay It Forward program had expanded, and other stores in the area began implementing similar initiatives. What had started as a potentially embarrassing moment for a teenager had blossomed into a community-wide commitment to helping others. One afternoon, as Jessica was training a new cashier, she received an unexpected visit from one of the first scholarship recipients, a young woman named Amy who, like Jessica, was working full-time while pursuing her degree. Amy had tears in her eyes as she thanked Jessica for creating an opportunity that had changed her life. "You know," Jessica told her, "none of this would have happened if I hadn't just followed my instincts that day with Barron. Sometimes the smallest decisions we make can have the biggest impact." She smiled, remembering the nervous teenager who had stood at her register just months ago. The key is to treat everyone with kindness, regardless of who they are or where they come from. As word of the scholarship program spread, Jessica began receiving invitations to speak at schools and community organizations. Though initially hesitant about public speaking, she found strength in sharing her message about the ripple effects of kindness and the importance of supporting one another's dreams. Her talks always emphasized that success wasn't just about individual achievement, it was about lifting others up along the way. The story continued to touch lives in unexpected ways, proving that sometimes the most powerful changes start with the simplest acts of human kindness. Jessica's experience had shown that in a world often divided by politics and social status, compassion and understanding could build bridges that no amount of money or influence could construct. As summer turned to fall, Jessica's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. The Chin Act of Kindness Scholarship was flourishing, having already helped 25 students begin their college journeys. But perhaps the most unexpected development came when she received an invitation to speak at a national conference on education and community empowerment in New York City. Standing in front of the mirror in her hotel room, adjusting her professional blazer, a gift from Melania Trump, Jessica couldn't help but marvel at how far she'd come from that ordinary day at the checkout counter. The conference room was packed with educators, business leaders, and philanthropists from across the country, all eager to hear the story that had captured America's heart. As she took the stage, Jessica noticed Barron and his parents sitting quietly in the back row, having come to support her without any fanfare. Taking a deep breath, she began sharing not just her story, but the stories of all the scholarship recipients whose lives had been changed. There wasn't a dry eye in the room as she described how a single moment of kindness had created a ripple effect throughout the country. "The truth is," Jessica said, her voice clear and confident, "we never know when a small act of compassion might change someone's life. That day at the store, I wasn't thinking about making headlines or starting a movement. I was just thinking about a young person who needed help, just like I once did." After her speech, a prominent tech company CEO approached her with an innovative proposal. He wanted to create a mobile app that would connect working students with emergency financial assistance, mentorship opportunities, and job placements. The app would be called Kindness Connect, inspired by Jessica's story. Back in Washington, D.C., Jessica's life had found a new rhythm. She still worked part-time at Richmond's Family Market, refusing to leave the place where it all began. Her colleagues noticed how she would take extra time with teenage customers, especially those who seemed nervous or uncertain. "Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity," she would often say during training sessions for new employees. The store had become something of a local landmark, with people coming from neighboring states just to shop there and perhaps catch a glimpse of the young woman whose kindness had started a national conversation. The Pay It Forward program had expanded into a comprehensive community support system, helping families with everything from grocery bills to school supplies. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, an elderly gentleman came to Jessica's register with just a loaf of bread and some soup. As she rang up his items, she noticed his hands trembling as he counted out loose change. Without hesitation, she reached for the Pay It Forward fund, but the man stopped her. "I know who you are," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. "I've been following your story. I used to be a teacher for 40 years, and what you're doing with that scholarship program, it's changing lives. My granddaughter just got accepted as one of the recipients." Tears welled up in his eyes as he continued, "She's the first in our family who'll go to college." Jessica came around the counter and gave the man a gentle hug, discreetly adding his items to the Pay It Forward tab. As he left, she realized that every interaction was an opportunity to show kindness, to make someone's day a little brighter. The Trump family had remained steadfast supporters of Jessica's initiatives. Barron, now more confident and outgoing, had started his own youth mentorship program inspired by his experience. He would often joke that getting his card declined was the best thing that had ever happened to him, as it had taught him valuable lessons about humility and the power of kindness. During a quiet moment at the store, Jessica received an unexpected video call from a scholarship recipient who was studying abroad in Japan. The student was crying happy tears as she shared how the scholarship had not only enabled her education but had inspired her to start a similar program in her host country. "Your kindness didn't just cross political lines," the student said, "it's crossing oceans now." The local community had embraced Jessica's philosophy wholeheartedly. Schools in the area had started implementing kindness curriculum programs, teaching students about empathy, community service, and the importance of helping others. Jessica was often invited to speak at these schools, where she would share her story and encourage young people to look for opportunities to make a difference. 1 year after the incident that changed everything, Richmond's Family Market hosted a special celebration. The store had been transformed with balloons and banners, and people from all walks of life gathered to commemorate what had become known as Kindness Day. The Trump family attended without any political agenda, simply as supporters of a movement that had brought people together. During the celebration, Jessica unveiled a new initiative, a mentorship program that would pair scholarship recipients with successful professionals in their chosen fields. The program would ensure that students received not just financial support, but also guidance and networking opportunities to help them succeed. As she looked around at the diverse crowd gathered in the store, customers, colleagues, scholarship recipients, and even former presidents, Jessica realized that kindness had a power that transcended all boundaries. Her simple act had created a legacy that would continue to impact lives for generations to come. The shy cashier who had once worried about making ends meet had become a beacon of hope for countless others. Yet despite all the recognition and success, Jessica remained grounded in her belief that true change happens one small act of kindness at a time. She still kept her original name tag from the store, a reminder that extraordinary things can happen when ordinary people choose to be kind. The launch of the Kindness Connect app marked another milestone in Jessica's journey. Within its first month, the platform had connected thousands of working students with emergency resources and mentorship opportunities. One afternoon, while demonstrating the app to a group of new users at a local community center, Jessica received news that would once again change the course of her story. A major international foundation had taken notice of the ripple effects created by her initial act of kindness. They wanted to expand the Chen Act of Kindness scholarship program globally, starting with 10 countries across different continents. The foundation's representative, a warm-hearted woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, explained their vision over coffee at Jessica's favorite campus cafe. "Your story has resonated with people worldwide," Mrs. Rodriguez explained, showing Jessica messages from students in countries as far as Brazil, Kenya, and Thailand. "We want to help you take this movement to the next level." The foundation was prepared to commit substantial resources to establish scholarship programs modeled after Jessica's initiative, adapting them to meet local needs in each country. The prospect both excited and humbled Jessica. That evening, she called her parents to share the news. Her father, who still worked long hours at his small restaurant, became emotional. "When we came to America, we had dreams for our children," he said, his voice trembling. "But you've exceeded those dreams by helping others achieve theirs." The global expansion began with a pilot program in Taiwan, Jessica's parents' homeland. During her first visit there to launch the scholarship, she met countless students who reminded her of herself, hardworking young people balancing jobs and education, determined to create better lives for their families. One young woman, working at her family's night market stall while studying engineering, shared how Jessica's story had given her hope. Back in Washington, D.C., Richmond's Family Market had become more than just a grocery store, it was a symbol of how small actions could spark massive change. The store's manager had implemented a unique training program called the Kindness Protocol, teaching new employees that customer service was about more than transactions, it was about human connection. Barron Trump, now a confident young adult, had become an active participant in the scholarship program selection committee. His experience as the recipient of Jessica's kindness had shaped his perspective on privilege and responsibility. During one committee meeting, he shared a powerful observation: "What Jessica taught me wasn't just about helping others, it was about seeing the humanity in everyone, regardless of their circumstances." The Kindness Connect app continued to evolve, adding new features based on user feedback. A particularly touching addition was the Ripple Effect feature, where users could track how their acts of kindness inspired others to pay it forward. Stories began pouring in from across the globe: a student in Mumbai helping an elderly neighbor with groceries, a teenager in London starting a tutoring program for underprivileged children, a college student in Buenos Aires organizing a food drive for local families. Jessica's graduation from college approached, and her thesis focused on the socio-economic impact of community-based kindness initiatives. Her research highlighted how simple acts of compassion could create measurable positive changes in communities. The university's dean was so impressed that he proposed establishing a new minor program in community impact studies, with Jessica invited to help develop the curriculum. One day, while reviewing applications for the next round of scholarships, Jessica received an unexpected visit at the store. A group of her first scholarship recipients had organized a surprise celebration. They presented her with a handmade book titled "The Ripples You Created," filled with stories and photographs documenting how their lives had changed. Among them was Amy, now graduating with honors and accepted into a prestigious graduate program. "You didn't just help us pay for college," she said, fighting back tears. "You showed us that one person's kindness can change the world. We're all committed to continuing that legacy." The Trump family's support remained steadfast, but they were careful to keep the focus on the mission rather than politics. Melania had become particularly involved in the program's mentorship aspect, connecting scholarship recipients with professionals in their fields of interest. She often emphasized how Jessica's story transcended political divisions, uniting people around the simple power of human kindness. The store's Pay It Forward program had inspired similar initiatives in businesses across the country. A national retail association invited Jessica to speak about implementing community support programs in retail environments. During her presentation, she emphasized the importance of treating every customer with dignity and understanding. "We never know what struggles someone might be facing," she reminded the audience. A moment of kindness could be exactly what they need. As the global scholarship program took shape, Jessica found herself connecting with student leaders from different cultures and backgrounds. During a virtual meeting with scholarship coordinators from 5 continents, she was moved by how her story had been adapted to resonate in different cultural contexts while maintaining its core message about the power of compassion. The Kindness Connect app's success led to partnerships with major educational institutions and corporations. Companies began offering internships and job opportunities to scholarship recipients, creating a comprehensive support system that went beyond financial assistance. A feature was added to help working students find flexible job opportunities that could accommodate their class schedules. Looking back at her old checkout counter, where everything had started, Jessica reflected on how a single moment could spark such tremendous change. The store had kept her original register as a symbol, with a small plaque that read, "Kindness begins here." New employees would often ask to take pictures with it, promising to carry forward the legacy of compassion in their own work. The story had come full circle when Jessica learned that several former scholarship recipients had started their own community initiatives, each creating new ripples of positive change. One had established a weekend tutoring program for elementary school students. Another had created a food delivery service for elderly neighbors. A third had started a clothing drive for job seekers attending interviews. 2 years after that fateful day at the checkout counter, Jessica found herself standing in front of the United Nations General Assembly. The Chin act of kindness had caught the attention of world leaders who saw it as a model for promoting education and social change. As she adjusted the microphone, Jessica couldn't help but smile at how far a simple act of kindness had reached. The UN had invited her to speak about the global impact of the scholarship program, which now operated in 25 countries. But instead of focusing on statistics and numbers, Jessica chose to share the personal stories that made the program special. She told them about May, a scholarship recipient in Singapore who had started a mobile library for underprivileged children, and Paulo from Brazil, who created a free coding school in his neighborhood. Kindness isn't just about giving, Jessica explained to the assembled diplomats and world leaders. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and understanding that we all face moments of vulnerability. As she spoke, she noticed Barron Trump in the audience, now serving as a youth ambassador for the program, nodding in agreement. The Kindness Connect app had evolved into something extraordinary, with over 5 million users worldwide. Tech companies had taken notice, and a major Silicon Valley firm offered to buy the platform for a substantial sum. However, Jessica and her team made a different choice. They transformed it into a non-profit organization, ensuring that its mission would always remain focused on helping others rather than generating profit. Back at Richmond's Family Market, the original store had become something of a pilgrimage site for people seeking inspiration. The store's manager had created a small museum corner, displaying the original register where it all began, along with photos and stories from people whose lives had been touched by the movement. But what made Jessica proudest was that the store still maintained its original mission, helping people in need, one transaction at a time. One morning, while Jessica was helping train new employees at the store, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was the elderly gentleman whose granddaughter had received one of the first scholarships. This time, he wasn't alone, he brought his granddaughter, now a graduating medical student. The young woman hugged Jessica tightly, sharing how the scholarship had changed not just her life, but the lives of countless others she would help as a doctor. The Trump family had remained committed to the program's success, but always in a way that emphasized unity over politics. During a scholarship award ceremony, Donald Trump surprised everyone by bringing together former presidents from both political parties to support the initiative. "Some things are bigger than politics," he said. "The power of kindness to change lives is one of them." Jessica's parents' small restaurant had also been transformed by the ripple effects of their daughter's actions. They had implemented their own version of the Pay It Forward program, ensuring that no one in their community went hungry. Local businesses followed suit, creating a network of support that helped families during difficult times. The Global Scholarship Program had begun producing remarkable results. Students from different countries formed international study groups, sharing knowledge and cultural perspectives. A young woman from Kenya collaborated with a student in Japan to create a sustainable farming project. A scholarship recipient from India partnered with one from Canada to develop a renewable energy initiative for rural communities. As the program grew, Jessica insisted on maintaining its personal touch. Every scholarship recipient still received a handwritten note, just like the one Barron Trump had given her years ago. These notes often became treasured possessions, reminding students that someone believed in their potential and cared about their success. The Kindness Connect app introduced a new feature called Community Champions, highlighting local heroes who made a difference in their communities. The stories ranged from small business owners providing job training to teenagers starting environmental cleanup programs. Each story reinforced the message that everyone had the power to create positive change. Universities began studying what they called the Chin effect, how small acts of kindness could create exponential positive change in communities. Research showed that areas with active scholarship recipients and Kindness Connect users experienced significant improvements in community engagement, educational outcomes, and social cohesion. One particularly touching moment came when Jessica received a video message from a group of students in a small village in Thailand. They had started their own version of the Pay It Forward program at their local school canteen, ensuring that no student went hungry. The video showed dozens of children sharing meals and helping each other, proving that kindness truly had no language barriers. The original incident with Barron had become something of a legend, but Jessica always emphasized that it wasn't about the money or the famous names involved. It was about seeing someone in need and choosing to help, she would say during her talks. That choice is available to all of us, every single day. Melania Trump had taken a special interest in the program's international expansion, using her multilingual skills to help connect with students worldwide. She often shared how Jessica's story had changed her own perspective on the importance of everyday interactions and the impact that service industry workers had on communities. The store's Kindness Protocol training program had been adopted by retail chains across the country, transforming how businesses approached customer service. The emphasis wasn't just on being polite or professional, it was about genuine human connection and understanding. Employees were trained to recognize signs of distress and empowered to help customers in need. As Jessica prepared to launch the program's next phase, a series of community centers that would provide resources and support for working students, she reflected on how a single moment had created such profound change. The centers would offer study spaces, career counseling, and emergency assistance, all inspired by her own experiences as a working student. The impact of the Chen act of kindness continued to grow in unexpected ways. Companies began offering kindness leave, paid time off for employees to volunteer or help others in their communities. Schools incorporated kindness and empathy into their curricula. Government agencies studied the program as a model for social services delivery. 3 years into the global initiative, Jessica found herself back at Richmond's Family Market on a quiet Sunday morning. She was filming a documentary about the power of everyday kindness, and the store's familiar aisles held countless stories. The film crew captured her interaction with a new cashier, a young student named David, who had received one of the recent scholarships. "When I first started working here," David shared with the camera, "I thought it was just going to be a regular job. But then I learned about Jessica's story, and I realized this isn't just a store, it's where dreams begin." He proudly showed off his name tag, which now included the words, "Kindness Ambassador," beneath his name, a new tradition the store had started. The documentary project had begun when a renowned filmmaker approached Jessica after hearing about a particularly moving story from South Africa. A scholarship recipient there had used her education to create a mobile learning program that brought technology and education to remote villages. The filmmaker saw how these individual stories were weaving together into a powerful narrative about human connection. During the filming, Barron Trump made a surprise visit to the store. Now in his early 20s, he had grown into a passionate advocate for education and youth empowerment. The cameras captured a genuine moment between him and Jessica as they stood by the famous checkout counter where their story began. "You know," Barron said, looking at the preserved register, "I was so embarrassed that day. I thought it was going to be the worst moment of my life. Instead, it became the best lesson I've ever learned." He went on to share how that experience had shaped his understanding of privilege, responsibility, and the importance of treating everyone with dignity. The Kindness Connect app had reached a new milestone, 10 million users worldwide. But beyond the numbers, it was the individual stories that continued to touch hearts. A feature called Kindness Journeys allowed users to trace how their acts of kindness had inspired others, creating chains of positive actions that stretched across continents. One such chain started when a scholarship recipient in Vancouver helped a struggling single mother with her groceries. The mother, inspired by the gesture, began offering free childcare to other working parents in her apartment building. One of those parents, touched by the support, started a weekend skills training program for neighborhood youth. The chain continued to grow, each link representing a life touched by kindness. Jessica's parents' restaurant had become a community hub, hosting monthly family dinner nights where scholarship recipients could bring their families to share meals and stories. These gatherings often turned into impromptu mentoring sessions, with successful graduates returning to offer guidance to newer students. The atmosphere was always filled with laughter, tears, and the unmistakable aroma of hope. The Global Scholarship Program had expanded to include specialized initiatives. A Second Chance program supported older students returning to education after life challenges. A Dream Builders program helped students from conflict zones pursue their education in safe environments. Each new initiative stemmed from real stories and needs identified by community members. During the documentary filming, Jessica received news that touched her deeply. The elderly gentleman whose granddaughter had received one of the first scholarships had passed away, but his legacy lived on. His granddaughter, now Dr. Thompson, had established a medical scholarship fund in his name, specifically for students working their way through medical school. The film crew captured Dr. Thompson's emotional visit to the store, where she placed her grandfather's favorite flowers, yellow daisies, by the memorial corner. "My grandfather always said that kindness was the best medicine," she shared, wiping away tears. "Now I get to help other students become doctors who will treat patients with the same kindness that changed our lives." The Trump family's continued support had evolved in meaningful ways. Melania had established a mentorship program specifically for first-generation immigrant students, inspired by Jessica's own background. The program paired students with successful professionals who shared similar cultural experiences, helping them navigate both educational and cultural challenges. One of the most powerful segments of the documentary featured a gathering of scholarship recipients from different years, countries, and backgrounds. They met at a conference center near Richmond's Family Market, sharing their stories and the various ways they had paid forward the kindness they had received. A young engineer from Mexico described how she had created a STEM program for girls in her community. A business graduate from Nigeria shared how he had started a microloan program for street vendors. A teacher from Australia explained how she had implemented a kindness curriculum that was being adopted by schools across her country. The Kindness Connect app's latest update included a feature that helped users find volunteer opportunities in their local communities. The Community Needs Map showed real-time requests for assistance, from students needing tutoring to elderly neighbors requiring help with groceries. The feature had facilitated over 1 million acts of kindness in its first month alone. Jessica's original checkout counter story had been incorporated into business school case studies, examining how simple acts of compassion could transform corporate culture. Major companies began implementing kindness metrics alongside traditional performance measures, recognizing that empathy and community impact were crucial to long-term success. As the documentary filming continued, Jessica received an unexpected message through the Kindness Connect app. A group of students from different countries had organized a virtual Kindness Summit, where they would share ideas for expanding the program's impact. The summit would connect scholarship recipients from 50 countries, each bringing unique perspectives on how to create positive change in their communities. The film crew captured Jessica's reaction as she read messages from summit participants. There was the story of twins from Brazil who had started a literacy program in their favela, a young man from Thailand who had created a sustainable farming initiative, and a woman from Ireland who had established a support network for working single parents. The documentary's premiere was held in an unexpected location, the parking lot of Richmond's Family Market. The store's management had set up a massive screen, and people from all walks of life gathered to watch. Families brought lawn chairs and blankets, creating an atmosphere that felt more like a community celebration than a film screening. As the sun set and the film began to play, Jessica sat between her parents, holding their hands. The documentary opened with security camera footage from that fateful day at the register, the grainy video showing a simple interaction that would change countless lives. The audience watched in respectful silence as the story unfolded on screen. The film captured a series of ripple effect stories that had never been shared publicly before. There was the tale of a small town in Minnesota where a local diner had adopted the Pay It Forward program after its owner's daughter received a Chen Act of Kindness scholarship. The diner became a symbol of community support, helping struggling families and lonely elderly residents find not just meals, but companionship. One of the most touching segments featured a group of former scholarship recipients who had created a network of free tutoring centers in underserved communities. The centers, called Kindness Hubs, operated in converted storefronts and community spaces, offering academic support and mentorship to students of all ages. During the screening, the film revealed a surprise that brought tears to many eyes. The Kindness Connect app had been tracking the cumulative impact of all the small acts of kindness it had facilitated. The numbers were staggering: over 15 million meals shared, 2 million hours of tutoring provided, 500,000 job opportunities created, and countless moments of human connection fostered. Barron Trump's segment in the documentary provided a particularly powerful perspective. He had grown into a thoughtful young man who understood the privilege of his position and used it to advocate for others. That moment of embarrassment at the register, he reflected on camera, taught me more about human dignity than any lesson I could have learned in a classroom. The film showed how the original store's training program had evolved into a comprehensive curriculum now used by businesses worldwide. The Kindness Protocol had been translated into 20 languages and adapted for different cultural contexts, but its core message remained the same: every interaction was an opportunity to show compassion. One of the documentary's most impactful sequences followed a day in the life of the store's current employees. The cameras captured small but meaningful moments: a cashier helping an elderly customer count change, a stock clerk offering to carry groceries to a pregnant woman's car, a manager quietly adding items to the Pay It Forward fund when he noticed a family struggling to afford basic necessities. Jessica's parents' restaurant featured prominently in the film, showcasing how their small family business had become a model for community engagement. The documentary captured their monthly family dinner nights, where the dining room buzzed with multiple languages as scholarship recipients and their families shared meals and stories. The sight of her father teaching young students how to cook traditional Taiwanese dishes brought fresh tears to Jessica's eyes. The global impact of the program was illustrated through a powerful montage of video messages from scholarship recipients around the world. A young woman in Kenya showed the computer lab she had established in her village. A student in Peru demonstrated how he had transformed an abandoned lot into a community garden. A teenager in Australia shared how she had started a mental health support group for young caregivers. The film crew had traveled to some of these locations, capturing the real-world impact of the program. In a remote village in India, they filmed a scholarship recipient who had created a mobile library system using motorcycles to deliver books to children in isolated areas. In a busy neighborhood in Tokyo, they documented how a group of students had transformed a shuttered shop into a community center offering free classes and support services. During the documentary screening, the Kindness Connect app's notification sound could be heard occasionally throughout the crowd, a gentle reminder that even during the premiere, acts of kindness continued to ripple through the community. Each ping represented someone reaching out to help, someone accepting assistance, or someone paying forward a kindness they had received. The film also addressed the challenges and obstacles the program had faced. It showed how communities had come together during natural disasters, using the Kindness Connect network to coordinate relief efforts. It documented how scholarship recipients had supported each other during the global health crisis, creating virtual study groups and emotional support networks. One particularly moving segment featured interviews with the children of scholarship recipients. These young people shared how watching their parents pursue education while working had inspired them to dream bigger and to understand the importance of helping others. Many had started their own initiatives in their schools, creating a new generation of kindness ambassadors. The documentary captured a surprise reunion at Richmond's Family Market. Dozens of former cashiers who had worked alongside Jessica returned to share their stories. Each had their own tales of small kindnesses that had made big differences. The current staff joined them for a group photo by the famous register, creating a powerful image of how one workplace could become a catalyst for change. As the film neared its conclusion, it revealed a new initiative that had grown from the program: the establishment of kindness research centers at universities around the world. These academic institutions were studying the societal impact of organized kindness programs, developing new models for community support, and training the next generation of social impact leaders. The screening ended with a scene that brought the story full circle. Jessica, now a respected community leader and global advocate for education, was shown training a new group of cashiers at Richmond's Family Market. "Remember," she told them, "every person who comes to your register is fighting their own battles. Your kindness might be the light that helps them through their darkest day." As the credits rolled and the applause died down, the audience remained seated, many wiping away tears. The documentary had captured something profound: how a single moment of kindness could spark a movement that transcended borders, cultures, and generations. 5 years after that life-changing moment at the checkout counter, Jessica stood in front of Richmond's Family Market on a bright spring morning. The store was hosting a special ceremony to commemorate what had become known as the Global Kindness Day. People from around the world had gathered to celebrate how a single act of kindness had transformed countless lives. The parking lot had been transformed into a festival space, with booths representing different countries where the Chen Act of Kindness Scholarship Program operated. Each booth showcased local success stories and cultural interpretations of the Kindness Initiative. The aroma of international cuisines from food stalls run by scholarship recipients' families filled the air, creating a truly global community celebration. Barron Trump, now a respected philanthropist in his own right, arrived without fanfare, just as he had that day years ago. He made his way through the crowd, stopping to chat with scholarship recipients and their families. His presence wasn't that of a celebrity, but of someone who understood firsthand how a moment of kindness could change everything. "You know what I remember most about that day?" he shared with a group of young students. "It wasn't the embarrassment or even the help itself. It was how Jessica made me feel like I was just another person who needed a hand. That's what real kindness is, seeing the humanity in everyone." The Kindness Connect app had evolved into something extraordinary. The latest version included a feature called Legacy Chains, which showed how acts of kindness had created ongoing positive changes in communities. One chain, started by Jessica's simple act, had now touched over 1 million lives across 6 continents. During the ceremony, a group of international students performed a musical piece they had composed called The Ripple Effect. The lyrics, sung in multiple languages, told the story of how kindness transcends borders and cultures. The performance moved many to tears, including Jessica's parents, who sat in the front row, beaming with pride. The documentary about Jessica's story had sparked a global conversation about the power of everyday kindness. Schools worldwide had incorporated it into their curricula, using it to teach students about empathy, community service, and the impact of individual actions. The film had been translated into over 50 languages and had inspired countless viewers to start their own kindness initiatives. One of the day's most touching moments came when a group of elderly residents from a nearby retirement home arrived. They had been regular customers at Richmond's Family Market for years, and many had benefited from the store's Pay It Forward program. They presented Jessica with a handmade quilt, each patch representing a different story of kindness they had experienced or witnessed at the store. The Trump family had continued their support in meaningful ways, but always with a focus on the mission rather than publicity. They had helped establish similar programs in other countries, working quietly behind the scenes to ensure that kindness and education remained accessible to all. Melania had become particularly involved in mentoring young immigrant students, sharing her own experiences of building a life in a new country. Jessica's parents' restaurant had grown into a chain of community-focused eateries, each operating on the principle that no one should go hungry. They had trained dozens of scholarship recipients in restaurant management, helping them start their own businesses based on the same model of community support and kindness. The Kindness Connect app's success had inspired other technology companies to prioritize social impact in their development. A new generation of apps focused on community building and support had emerged, all traced back to that simple interaction at a grocery store checkout counter. New employees still trained at Register 7, learning that their job was about more than just processing transactions. Jessica had recently completed her doctoral dissertation on the socio-economic impact of community-based kindness initiatives. Her research showed how simple acts of kindness could create measurable positive changes in communities, from improved educational outcomes to reduced crime rates and stronger social bonds. The celebration included a special ceremony for the newest group of scholarship recipients. As each student received their award, they shared how they planned to pay the kindness forward. Their goals ranged from starting tutoring programs to creating community gardens, each continuing the ripple effect in their own unique way. A touching moment came when David, the young cashier who had appeared in the documentary, announced he was graduating medical school. He would be joining Dr. Thompson's practice, completing a circle of kindness that had begun years ago with her grandfather's story. The Kindness Connect app revealed a remarkable milestone during the ceremony. Over 100 million acts of kindness had been tracked and traced back to the original inspiration of Jessica's story. These ranged from small gestures like helping with groceries to life-changing acts like funding education and starting community programs. As the day drew to a close, Jessica stood at her old register one last time. The store was quiet now, the celebrations winding down. She ran her hand along the smooth counter, remembering that day 5 years ago when a nervous teenage boy had stood before her, unaware that their interaction would change the world. Sometimes people ask me if I knew what would happen that day, she shared with the remaining crowd. Of course, I didn't. I just knew that someone needed help, and I could provide it. That's all kindness really is, recognizing our shared humanity and acting on it. The sun was setting as the last guests departed, casting a golden glow over Richmond's Family Market. The store's sign now included a small addition, Home of the Kindness Revolution. But for Jessica, it would always be simply the place where she learned that the smallest actions could create the biggest changes. As she locked up the store that evening, a young customer rushed up, worried about having forgotten their wallet. Without hesitation, Jessica smiled and reached for the Pay It Forward fund, continuing the cycle of kindness that had begun 5 years ago. Some things, she had learned, never really end, they just keep rippling outward, touching life after life, creating a legacy of love and compassion that transcends time and borders.